Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's focus session. If you can hear me and see my screen, please let me know in the chat. Once I get confirmation from a couple of you, we'll go ahead and move forward. If you don't know where the chat is located, it should be on the left side of your screen, and there should be a chat tab up at the top that you can click on to access that chat area. And if you don't see anything on the left side of your screen, down at the bottom, there's a row of buttons. You can click on the little text box icon and that will pull up the chat. There's also a Q&A. Awesome. Thank you, Laura, Chad, and Sherry. Appreciate it. Glad to hear that everything's working. So today's focus session is going to be on the tools menu. My name is Adrielle. I'm with the onboarding department here at OwnerRez. I do these focus sessions typically every couple of weeks on different areas of the system. And as I said, today we'll be going over the tools menu. It's a really useful part of the OwnerRez system that I think a lot of people tend to overlook. So hopefully you all will learn something new today, and hopefully this will be helpful. Back to the logistics of the webinar. If you have any questions, you can either throw those in the chat, or if you're able to put them in the Q&A section, there should be a tab for that up at the top of that left side chat bar. Click on the Q&A and put any questions there. We'll have some time for questions and answers about the tools menu at the end of the presentation. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So in the tools menu, there are a lot of different things you can do, and we're going to go over most of them. We're going to talk about quick quote, find or create a guest, communication history, rate testers and checkers, listing quality analyzer, bulk block off, and the import and export area. So from within your OwnerRez account, to access the tools menu at any time, you will click on the wrench in the upper right corner, and it's going to bring up the full tools menu here with all of these different things that you may find helpful. The first thing is the quick quote. So no matter where you are in your OwnerRez account, you can click on this wrench, click on quick quote, and you can quickly generate a quote, hence the name. So you would just select the property that you want to create that quote for, put in your arrival and departure dates and the number of guests. Let's go ahead and do this, and then click create quote, and it'll take you straight to that quote generation page where you can fill in the rest of the information. Click save, and then you can send that quote to the guest. Easy peasy right from the tools menu. The next thing you can do from the tools menu is find or create a guest. So for this, you'll just click on that, and you can type in the name of a guest, and you can either click on one of your past guests, or you can click add to create a new guest, and that will open up this guest form. This is a really great way to either find a past guest or create a new guest without having to leave whatever page you're already working on within your OwnerRez account. If you're creating the new guest, you just fill in the information that you have. Hopefully you have at least their email and phone number. If you don't have their address, typically that's okay. If they're going to be making a booking with you, you'll be able to collect that address from them during the booking process. So those are the first two items in the tools menu. The next item is the communication history. And this is going to show you every email, text message, or channel message sent from your OwnerRez account. So just looking at the email one as our example today, we have any emails from OwnerRez sent to you, or if it says from you to the guest or someone else in your contacts, that is messages that OwnerRez or emails that OwnerRez sent on your behalf to that person. So you'll be able to tell if that message was opened or just delivered. And if you click on the, let's see here, let me find an example that I can use. If you click on the email, it'll tell you the activity on that email. So it'll tell you when the email was queued to send, when it was actually sent, when it was delivered, and what time the guest opened it. And if the guest has opened the email multiple times, it'll show you multiple events for the email being opened. So that can be really useful because it'll tell you whether or not the guest actually saw the email that you sent them. If we go to your Airbnb, Vrbo, or Booking.com tabs, it'll show you any messages sent to the guest from within your OwnerRez account. That's great too. And then SMS, of course, if you have the SMS feature turned on, you'd see those messages here. So this is a really great way to see all of the communication that's been happening related to your OwnerRez account and guest communication. The next thing I want to talk about is the rate calendar. So from anywhere in your account, you can click on that wrench and then click rate calendar, and it's going to bring you right to your rate calendar, just like it says. So that's a nice way to just quickly access this. If you need to check your rates or make a quick change to them, you can just click on tools and click rate calendar, and you'll be right where you need to be. The next thing is the direct rate tester. So this is a great way to look up your rates for direct bookings. So we'll choose a property here, and then we'll put in the dates. I want to use August 6th to the 12th, and we'll just say it's for 2 adults. Then you'll click generate charges, and it's going to show you now exactly which charges in your own which charges apply to that booking. So we see here that we have different types of rates applying. So we have 2 nights in this date range that are being set by spot rates during the summer season. So spot rate is a rate that you manually set on the calendar, and it overrides your regular seasonal rates. And then 2 of these nights are the seasonal rates at $225 per night. And then 2 of the nights during this date range are also the seasonal rate, but it's the weekend night rate, $300 per night. And then we have our cleaning fee that applies to this booking and the taxes that apply to this booking. So if we want to look more closely at this, we can go to our rate calendar. So let's click on that tools menu, and we can click on the rate calendar to open that up in a new tab. And now we're going to select the property we were looking at. Scroll down to August, and we can see here we had our date set to August 6th through the 12th. So we have the spot rates here on the 7th and the 10th. The way I know this is a spot rate, at first glance, because it's a bold rate, I know that that is a spot rate, which means I manually changed it on my calendar. But also if I hover over the date, it tells me that it's a custom rate. And so that also indicates that it's a spot rate. And then we have our weekday. So this is our regular seasonal rate, $225 for weekdays. That's on this Wednesday and Monday. And then we have the $300 weekend nightly rate. And so if we go back to our rate tester, we can see that that information is provided here. So this tells us exactly which days are having this $225 per night and this $300 per night. And then this one, again, is spot rates. So that's really helpful. If you feel like something is off with your rates, you can search for a specific period of time and dig in a little bit deeper to see exactly where all the rates and charges are coming from. The next tool that I want us to look at is the channel rate tester. So this is kind of similar to the direct rate tester, but it's going to show you what the rates are on a channel compared to what OwnerRez expects to see for those rates. So again, you'll select the property, you'll select the exact channel that you want to use, and then the dates and the number of guests, and then click generate charges. Because my example account is not connected to a channel, I have to show you all some screenshots for this. So this is what that comparison will look like. It's important to note that for Airbnb in particular, the rates might not match exactly. Airbnb does some rounding, typically to the nearest dollar, something like that. So it may not match exactly, but if the numbers are roughly the same, then that means everything is working as expected. So we want to just make sure that, again, everything matches, which in this example, it matches exactly. So that's great. In this example, the host is collecting and remitting all of the taxes. So that's why we see them here as live and expected. In this case, Airbnb is not collecting or remitting any taxes for the host. So that is why it is shown in both of these columns. An example where Airbnb collects and remits the tax is not going to be shown in the expected column because your OwnerRez tax settings are going to be set to exclude Airbnb. So it's only going to show up in the Airbnb column. And so that is going to create a large discrepancy between your grand total. So you'll want to pay a little bit more attention to the charge total to make sure that these are roughly the same. Again, Airbnb does some rounding and other things, so it may not match exactly, but as long as it's roughly the same, you're in good shape. Also on that channel rate tester, below the comparison of live and expected charges, you'll see the fees. So it'll show you the host fees. That's the commission that Airbnb charges to you. And then any guest fees that the guest will be charged on top of this total. And that is the service fee that Airbnb charges to the guest. That's how the channel rate tester works. Next thing I want to look at is the rate checker tool. So again, we'll click on that wrench and we'll go down here to rate checker. This is going to let you see your rates for a certain property for a longer period of time at a glance. Where is my Heron's Roost? There it is. Okay. So by default, it's going to show you whatever your normal booking window is. So I have this one set to a year out. So that's what it's going to show me by default. I can always change this if I want to. And then I'm going to click Analyze Rates. And the first section here is going to show me all the nightly rates for the next year. So starting from today and then ending a year out. So we have the month of June, 11th to the 30th, and then we have July 1st to the 31st, so on and so forth for the whole year. Our weekends are in dark gray. And then we have, if we have any missing rates, it'll tell us with an exclamation mark on that night. And then if we have anything that's discounted more than 99%, we will also get an indicator of that. So in this case, the rates look pretty good. You can see where I have my regular, these are my spot rates here. These are my weekend rates. And then my weekends on this property are set to Saturday and Sunday. So that's why it looks like this, because I have that spot rate on Sunday for $255. So you can dig into here and see at a glance all your rates for the year. And then if you scroll down, you can see all of your rate groups. So if you have any consecutive nights that have the same rate, it'll show up here in this list. And because I have a lot of different rates, I have a long list of all these different consecutive nights with their same rates. But we'll scroll to the bottom of that and we will get to the rule groups. So this can be a really helpful table to look at from time to time, just to make sure that you don't have any weird rules or any rules that you need to change. So what we can see here is that from June 11th to July 1st, I'm allowing arrivals and departures any day of the week. And then I have some restrictions that kick in around July 2nd to July 6th. And if we look at the seasonal rates, let me go to, or sorry, seasons. Let's look at our seasons. Okay, I do have a specific date season set for July 2nd to July 6th. That's what's being indicated by these three lines. And I am not allowing arrival or departure on Friday. And that's because this year, the 4th of July falls on a Friday. So I don't want anyone checking in or checking out on that date. So I've restricted my arrival and departure. That is what these three lines are telling me here. And it looks like I've done kind of a similar thing over Thanksgiving and Memorial Day. Looks like I have no arrivals or departures allowed on New Year's Day or Christmas. So this is really useful to look at a glance. And the last column that you'll want to look at here, or the last two columns you'll want to look at, are the minimum and maximum columns. So this is going to show you minimum nights that you have set over these time periods. So it'll show you for these dates that you have a 5-night minimum, 2 nights, so on and so forth. And then if you have maximum night restrictions set, those will show up in this final column over here on the far right. Okay, so the next thing I want us to look at is the listing quality analyzer. This is a really good and underutilized tool in OwnerRez. You want to run this every so often. Anytime you make any changes to your listing, you really should run it again and make sure that everything is still working. There's no errors on your listing. So normally you can run this for all your properties. Unless you have a ton of properties, you may want to just run it in batches. But if you only have a handful of properties or one property, just run it for all properties. In case I'm going to choose Heron's Roost. And then you would normally select every single channel that you are listing that property on or that you plan to list the property on. In this case, I'm just going to select Airbnb and then click Analyze Listings. And it's going to show me all of the errors, warnings, and informational items for this property. So first with the errors, anything that has to do with the photo size, as long as that photo looks good on a computer, you should be okay to ignore that error. Just make sure you're looking at that photo on a computer and not on like a tablet or a phone to make sure that the resolution is good and clear. And if it looks good to you on a computer screen, then you can go ahead and ignore any errors or warnings related to photo size. Other errors like pricing, those need to be addressed. Pretty much anything that's an error needs to be addressed. So this category column will tell you where you can find that error and then what element it is. So in this case, this is telling us that it's in our settings under pricing and specifically surcharges. Looks like I have some surcharges that are misconfigured and won't work for Airbnb. So I would need to go in and address that. Then I also have some other things that need to be addressed, including description. So I'm going to look at this description's headline title. Okay, so I'm going to go to my property. I can just right click here and open that link in a new tab. And I'm going to go to the description page. And this is pretty obvious why there's so many errors, because there's no listing content on here at all. So right now I'm just going to get rid of this headline error by putting in something like this. And I'm going to click Save and Close. And now if we run the listing quality analyzer again, we should see this headline title error be removed. So let's do that. And sure enough, now it's gone. So you would just repeat that process for any errors that you see and make sure all your errors are cleared. And then you would want to review all the warnings. Warnings are things that are recommended. So for instance, we recommend having photo captions and including information under guest instructions. But this really is up to your discretion. It's not something that you have to have. The errors are more of the have to haves other than the photo size. So make sure all your errors are cleared. Warnings are up to your discretion. And then we have the informational ones, which are just going to tell you kind of your range of nightly rates and then other items that you may want to address. That's how the listing quality analyzer works. It's a really useful tool to keep your listings on the channels as high quality as possible. So we do recommend running it when you make major changes and maybe just every couple of months, every month or two, just to make sure that everything is staying up to date and really high quality for those listings. The next tool that I want us to look at is called the bulk block off. So again, click on the wrench. Scroll down here to bulk block off. This is a really great tool if you have properties that are really seasonal and maybe you close down for entire parts of the year. You can select the dates that you want to just be closed for. And so in this case, let's just say November 1st to April 1st. And we will just put whatever you want here for the title. And then you can choose all the properties that this would apply to all at once. Instead of having to go into your calendar and create a block off for each property individually, this allows you to block the dates for all your properties at once. And then we don't need to worry about that. I'm going to click Save on this. And now when we look at our calendar for those dates, we can see that that block has now been applied to all of those properties. So that's really useful, like I said, if you have rentals that are really seasonal and you just close down for whole parts of the year. The next thing I want us to look at is the import and export tool. So this will take you to a page in your account that has a lot of different ways to import and export data from OwnerRez. So you'll primarily use this page during the setup process of your account. If you have direct bookings that you need to import, you can use these spreadsheets to bring that information in. If you have guests you want to import, or maybe you have reviews that are not from Airbnb or Vrbo that you want to add to OwnerRez, you can use this reviews spreadsheet to bring those in. You don't need to put your Vrbo or Airbnb reviews on this spreadsheet, because once your API connected, those will come in automatically through the API integration with those channels. You can also use it if you're a property manager to import all of your owner contact information all at once, instead of having to set up each owner individually. So it can be a huge time saver, especially during that account setup process, to use these import tools. The other one that you might use more on an ongoing basis as an OwnerRez user is this import Vrbo commissions one. When you're API integrated with Vrbo, they bill you each month for your commissions that you owe them. And they put a spreadsheet in your Vrbo account that shows the breakdown of what the commission was on each of your Vrbo bookings the previous month. And so this tool allows you to just import that spreadsheet straight into OwnerRez. And that way you don't have to manually add those fees to each of your Vrbo bookings. If you go into our support center by clicking on the question mark in the upper right corner and click on support center, if you search for Vrbo commission, this help article right here, the Vrbo pay per booking commission file imports, this article will show you where in your Vrbo account to find that file, and then it walks you through the steps of importing it into OwnerRez. So really useful there, keeping all your financial data up to date in OwnerRez. And it's a very quick process. I do this every single month. It takes me less than 2 minutes. I've spent more time explaining the process than it actually takes to do it each month. So easy peasy way to get that information added to your account. All right, and then lastly on the toolbar, we have some featured integrations. All of these integrations offer some level of free service for OwnerRez users, so you can check those out if you think that that might be useful to you. That brings us to the end of today's webinar on tools menu. We went over a bunch of different items in that tools menu, but mainly we went over the quick quote, finder, create guest, communication history, the rate testers and rate checkers, listing quality analyzer, bulk block off, and the import export tools. And now we'll go ahead and move into Q&A. So give me just a moment while I check the chat to see if we have any questions. It looks like we have one question from Laura about Price Labs. So yes, if you're using Price Labs is going to override your rates in OwnerRez. And then if you have minimum nights set in Price Labs, that will also override your minimum nights in OwnerRez. So you can have your minimum nights set in either OwnerRez or in Price Labs, but if you set minimum nights in Price Labs, it will override minimum nights in OwnerRez. So you only want it set in one or the other system. But still, you can use this tool, the rate checker tool. This is still going to show you what information Price Labs is sending into OwnerRez. So even, or did I say that right? If you're using Price Labs, you can still use this tool to see what Price Labs is sending over. And so that can be, you know, you can look in Price Labs too, but as far as the minimum nights go, it can be nice to just see it at a glance. And I don't see any other questions. I'll give you all another minute or two to post a question if you have one. In the meantime, let's review some of the available support resources that we offer. We have our help desk team that you can reach at help@ownerrez.com. And then we have our support center, ownerrez.com/support. If you specifically want to watch support videos, you can find those at ownerrez.com/support/videos. And then we have our forums, ownerrez.com/forums. This is where you can post things like feature requests or questions about the system, and you can get feedback from not just our team here at OwnerRez, but also your fellow OwnerRez users. And then we have our blog, ownerrez.com/blog. That's where you can stay up to date on all of the latest OwnerRez news, updates that have been made to the system, industry news, and new integrations that have come out. And then we have our webinars page, ownerrez.com/webinars. I'm going to actually go to that page. And here you can see all of the upcoming webinars. So we have a weekly demo, which is really great. It gives you kind of an overview of the system, but there's also a question and answer session at the end of every demo. So that's really good to take advantage of. And then we also have our every other week question and answer sessions. This is live Q&A. So this is a really good one. If you have questions, go ahead and sign up for that. You can submit your questions during the sign up process for that. Get registered. That's hosted by Steve from our engagement team. He's super knowledgeable, so highly recommend checking that out. And then it looks like we have a partner integration webinar coming up soon with Boostly. So go ahead and get registered for that too. And then in the past webinar section, you'll find all of our past focus sessions and past webinars that we've done with various integration partners. So this page is a really good resource as well for learning more about the OwnerRez system. All right, let me look and see if we got any more questions. Does not, let's see. Andrian had a question. Test if my email is working from OwnerRez. Guests are telling you that your emails are bouncing. If you could go ahead and write into our help desk about that, Andrian, that's a little bit more than I can get into at this time, and I think it might require a little bit of digging into your account. So please send us an email, help@ownerrez.com, and we'll be happy to look into that issue for you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and I hope to see you at the next one. Have a great summer, everyone. Bye-bye.